Calls recorded for quality insurance. Welcome to the Quality Insurance Podcast. This is Jared Morgan. I'm a managing partner of both Paducah Insurance and American Church Group of Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And I wanted to introduce you to a new platform for us to communicate with our customers and others. So we've struggled with this idea for a while and thought about it. I'm a big consumer of podcasts. I listen to a lot of them. And while there's things that I'd like to say, and there's different wisdom and strategies that we've collected along the way, we primarily use that information with our customers when we're setting up their insurance and asking them what they want to have happen. But as we've grown, communicating on an ongoing basis has become more challenging, and we simply wanted to be effective in communicating with customers. So why a podcast? I love podcasts. I drive 30 minutes each day to work, home and to work. And frankly, have felt like that is an easier way to communicate and a more accessible way to communicate for some folks. We're going to generally have an article accompany each podcast with either transcripts or summaries. And we chose to do this through the Substack platform, which is really designed for journalists that offer some free articles and then charge for paid content, which we won't be doing anytime. The good news about Substack is that it allows us to send emails out when a new article or podcast is posted to alert everybody. And then you'll see us share those on social media as well. But more than anything else, we hope to offer you some value and offer a voice to folks that we want to interview and communicate with, really just to bring value to our customers, more so than a broader network. I'm sure it'll help us with local business, as we're going to try to focus on local issues as well. So why the generic name, the Quality Insurance Podcast? On a whim, when I was recording our notice to incoming calls that our phone system records, we have to notify people when they call if you're going to record their calls. And so instead of saying calls recorded for quality assurance, on a whim in 2018 when recording that, I said calls recorded for quality insurance. And that's the intro that we're going to include on the podcast. Hey, it works for us, and it was easy enough to deal with. Also, why start a podcast now? I'll be honest with you, we've got some crazy things happening in the world around us. Yes, it's to better communicate with customers of both Paducah Insurance, and a lot of those are business owners and homeowners and our personal customers and commercial customers, and then also our church clients. For whatever reason, we've specialized or really done high volume in property insurance, accounts that have got a lot of property. So you think about a church, 80% of our church claims are property claims. You think about apartments. We do a lot of apartments and real estate investors. Homeowners is this way. And one of the things we always try to pay attention to is to make sure that if someone wants replacement costs from their insurance, that if they have a substantial loss, that we've got enough limits to help them rebuild their building. And if we don't, at least they have made that decision in advance to say, hey, yeah, I want less than replacement costs. What's really put me over the edge for us to pursue the podcast and start publishing is the December 2021 tornado in Mayfield and Marshall counties. That tornado really revealed something that was happening in the broader economy all over the U.S., and it revealed something that is just going to be devastating for certain people. So in a normal year, when you have a tornado rip through, or a large storm or wildfire or catastrophic loss that totals buildings, either a home or a business, commercial building, the owners discover at the point of that loss whether or not they insured their building to replacement cost or something else. And a lot of people will buy a home or a building and they'll say, hey, I bought it for $200,000. Why am I insuring it for $400,000 or $350,000? And the insurance agents say we're always quick to alert our customers, listen, we're insuring replacement costs. We're not insuring market value. Market value is what you can buy it for. Replacement cost is what you build it for. So we want to insure it to replacement cost because we want to put you back. We want to indemnify you and put you back where you were before you had the loss. So in a normal year, a natural disaster like a tornado destroys homes and commercial buildings. It reveals whether or not the owners insured the building with enough insurance limits to rebuild. And listen, some insurance companies focus on market value, and they tend to be able to give market value for less money than replacement cost because they're given a lower limit. So I give you an insurance proposal on your homeowners for a home you bought for $200,000 and it's got a $350,000 limit. And one of my competitors gives you a proposal for a $200,000 limit. A lot of times they'll beat me on the price. And so if you chose the least costly insurance when you purchased insurance on your home, then at that point, when the loss happens and that home's destroyed, you're not going to be able to rebuild it for the market value. You're going to have more limits than that. So in a normal year, there are certain people who discover, oh man, we insured this building for market value instead of replacement cost. Now, in this year, in 2021, when the tornado struck Marshall County in Mayfield, it hit the city proper in the downtown area and hit some residential areas of older neighborhoods. In Marshall County, it hit a high-end lake neighborhood called Cambridge Shores and just obliterated 20 to 30 homes from what I could tell, maybe more just in that neighborhood. And there are people who saw both Mayfield and in a lake area in Marshall County and said Marshall might have been worse. So in that environment, in a normal year, people discover they don't have enough coverage. This year, people who had replacement costs on their homes and tried to be responsible in 2021 discovered that their 2021 limits weren't enough because inflation in building material construction costs has increased around 70%. From 2021 to 2022. And I'm going to say that again. The cost to build a building has increased by 70% from 2021 to 2022. And there's a number of reasons for it, which I won't go into. But inflation is alive and right now, and it has just driven the cost to build through the roof. So a lot of folks bought replacement costs on insurance coverage with high limits and maybe an extra 25% thrown in with an endorsement. And they discovered that extra 25% wasn't enough to cover the increase in inflation, which was 70%. And so for me as an insurance agent, I'm sitting here looking around going, holy smokes. We had some churches that did experience this in total loss, where the limits just weren't enough to rebuild what they had. But we didn't have any homeowners that got damaged that bad. But for me, my commitment is at least to make sure you're making an informed decision on what limits you purchase. And after we write you, it's a compromise between what the insured wants, which is normally a lower limit than replacement cost, and what the insurance company demands, which is normally a higher limit, closer to replacement cost. And so we compromise normally on where those dollar amounts end up. And then every year, we end up increasing that limit to try to keep up with inflation, which in a normal year is going to be, 5 to 7%, 3 to 5%, depending on what the environment is, not 70%. If you want replacement cost, the reason we're doing this podcast, at least initially, whatever you've got your buildings, home or commercial buildings or church insured for, it's not enough. It's not enough. Right now, it's not enough. So we're not going to do a renewal where we increase your limit 70%. That's not going to happen. So what's that mean? I want my customers to be aware of the risks that they have, where they just don't have enough insurance limits for replacement costs right now. And most of the insurance companies and most of the industry is not just going to go out and increase the building limit 70% because that's going to drive the premium up substantially as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. So I want to really get the word out with this podcast. And the purpose for this initially is simply to say, hey, make sure you're aware of what the inflation's doing to construction costs and what that means for your home or commercial building or church. That's number one. Number two, I plan on interviewing as many people as I can who are involved in the construction industry or see it in a way where they can speak personally to what they've seen from an inflation standpoint. Third on this is increase 1-to-1 on the increase in your building limit to the increase in your premium. So we're not quite 1-to-1, but it's close. So if we go up 70% of your building limit, it's going to drive your insurance cost up 50 to 60%. Just like the rest of the economy, just like the building material suppliers whose pricing has gone up 70%. On average, higher or less, depending on the specifics. just like those folks in that industry, insurance is going to get pulled into higher prices. Simply trying to keep up with your limits. It's almost a 1-to-1 premium per bill. So that's coming. If we're just going to keep up with limits, that's not even rate change. That's just keeping up with limits. On top of that, for autos, late model used autos are worth more than new cars right now. If you can find a new car, you can immediately turn around and sell it for more than you paid for it. Insurance auto rates are built on depreciation, meaning that they expect the vehicle to be worth less every year as it ages. That's not what's happening. As a result of that, auto rates are not adequate to cover the claims. So we see pressure coming in building limit increases, which are going to drive increases in limits or in premium. We see pressure building on auto rates. And that's not even to mention the fact that all these natural disasters have happened in the last 5 years that are driving reinsurance costs through the roof. So reinsurance is really taking a lot of increase too. All that to be said is we want to alert our customers, hey, expect higher prices on insurance. I'm not asking you to go bid everything, and we've got markets and we can work with you to try to figure out the best solution. But I am going to tell you that overall, our industry is going to get drug into this inflation just like everybody else has. Part of that discussion too is labor rates are starting to go up. And they've got to for people to keep up with the cost increases, but they haven't hit fully like they're coming. So we expect a lot of inflation still to continue to impact the area. So that's why in the short term. So expect a couple of things. We're going to try to focus and interview people in the local area. I've got some great plans for where the podcast is going from a topic standpoint. I have some motivational stuff coming. I've got a love-hate relationship with Tom Brady, and I'm going to do a podcast episode on that that's unfortunately kind of motivating in spite of my efforts to dog the guy. On top of that, we've got really focused on the inflation across different businesses, construction, banking, building material supply, used cars. We'll hit all of those. We've got some reports from CoreLogic on the quarterly construction increase and how much that's hit. We've got claims examples, talking specific stories about the Mayfield tornado and who experienced it and how experienced it in the different churches that were damaged and different individuals. We've got large loss stories from an apartment fire coming and interviewing different adjusters and industry insiders that can speak about how claims work. We'd like to focus on different areas, not just churches, but also restaurants, realists, looking at kind of the state of the marketplace for insurance. We've also got marketing, risk management services, background checks, tax advice. All that's coming, and as we release, we'll release 3 episodes at once to get it started and really try to push and get the word out. And after that, we'll do likely one every other week or whenever they get released. But at the end of the day, we hope this publication brings value to those who are open to listening, that the articles on the website are useful to you as a summary or a transcript, and ultimately that it's valuable and worth your time as a way to learn a little bit more about insurance and risk management and business in general and how we run business. So thank you for your time. I look forward to publishing more and getting more of these out there. Thanks. The Quality Insurance Podcast is a production of Paducah Insurance Agency, LLC, and American Church Group of Kentucky, LLC. This podcast is a member of the Ministry League Network. The podcast music is Moonlight Motor Inn, written by Steve Spurgeon, arranged by Dan Crary, and recorded by Josh Williams.